The Service Committee will come to order to discuss the preliminary budget for 2022. Actually, all 5 commissioners are present for the record. And we'll turn the meeting over to Ms. Nelson.
Yes, so you all have a booklet in front of you that has the 2022 preliminary budget. So you could see line by line. The first sheet is just the levy calculation and how it's calculated. And then the next part is the budget booklet, and then line by line, every line item from every department. So you could see the expenses. And we talked about that as people came in, and you got copies of that. So I have information that I'll hand out at the commission meeting, but I can hand it out now if you'd like. And this is just by department, all the increases. You can see that. It's everything that's in that booklet, but it's just in a condensed format. So you can see the general fund, what it was in 2021 for each department and what was requested in 2022 and has been included in the preliminary budget. And then also every is included. Someone talking? What was that? Feedback. Oh, feedback.
We're getting feedback from you, Mr. Ford, so. Can you hear us, Tom?
Barely.
Okay.
Do we, well, maybe we don't have our mics on. Thank you. Thank you. So I will go through what I was going to go through at the commission meeting, and if it's too much information, just let me know. But what I've got here is what you have is included in my information. Everything isn't printed there. So in the 2022 preliminary budget, we have included 4% cost of living increase January 1, 2022, a 2% market adjustment April 1st, 2022. The state's attorney, sheriff, and commission are included in the COLA and the market increase. 3% step increase for qualified employees on their 2022 seniority date. And that costs about $1.2 million. Most of that comes from the general fund, 1.1 million. Then we have health insurance. We were given a range between 0 and 5, and we used 5 based on the actual costs that were occurring in 2021. And that would be $120,000 approximately. We've included staff. We increased a position in emergency management from 30 hours to full time. So the cost for that was $14,000, just over $14,000. Juvenile detention has an additional full-time position, but it was offset by an hourly employee. So the cost was about $27,000 for that. And then the Sheriff's Department is applying for a federal grant for a rural school resource officer, and the net cost is about $13,500. Other changes included in the 2022 budget: capital improvements was increased from $750,000 to $2 million. Bonds will not be levied for in 2022. The road levy was increased from 8.51 mils to 10 mils. That's the maximum without a vote. We are using about $2.8 million in the general fund to keep the mills at 48.78. If we lowered capital improvements to 1 million, that's typically what we put in there instead of 2, and remove that cash, we would be at about 57 mils in the general fund, and 60 is the maximum that we can have in that levy for the general fund. So looking at the increases in the general fund, and that's what I've given you there. We have an overall increase compared to last year in the general fund of $3.3 million. Where did 3.3 million come from? Well, 1.1 million approximately came from salaries and benefits, 1.25 for the capital improvement increase. Some of the other things were the base retention, that was 121,000 added, and that's from the original 2021 budget that was levied for. Some of it was a budget amendment that happened after the year occurred, but just looking at the differences compared to what we levied for compared to the 2022 budget. It's an election year in 2022. There's $155,000 more for 2022 than there was in 2021. CBIC, we increased that from 85,000 to 100,000 approximately. $14,097 increase. We have the Vision Zero coordinator that was not budgeted in 2021, but it's fully offset by the state, and that's 96,101. Then that grant position, the fully funded position is 81,404. That's in the sheriff's department. Now our cost is only 13,500 after we received all of revenue back. We've got the Siren 2020 program for 100,000. That's fully offset, but that's part of our increase, our $3.3 million increase. So with all that, our budget increased 3.3. Our cash is $1.9 million more than it was last year for the general fund. The revenue we're going to receive is 400,000 more, and our levy is increasing 949,000, or 3.82% more than it was last year in the general fund. Then I have special revenue funds. We have the county road and bridge fund, and we talked about that going from 8.51 to 10 mils. A huge need in the road and bridge for culverts. I guess we learned about that, and this is just like a Band-Aid on the problem. Emergency fund, I've increased that levy. We normally keep it pretty low at about 0.23, and we doubled it to 0.46 this year because of all of the flooding that we had, and our share of FEMA costs comes out of that fund. We're just replenishing it a little bit. You can see the capital and construction, $1.4 million that we levied in 2021, we will not be levying in 2022. The Water Resource Board increased their levy $100,000, and they reminded us that they actually had decreased when we needed extra funds. We had called them in and they said, we will lower our levy. And they did, and now they're just asking for that money back. And the weed board too, we had called in and talked to them, and they have the additional needs that they are not getting covered. So their increase is $85,000. The ambulance is a 6 mil levy voted on by people, so it's always 6 mils. No matter what 6 mils brings, that's the increase they're going to get. The highway is $1 million greater than before. We do not levy for the highway. So that's just informational. The total budget increased 4.4 million or 12%. We're using almost $3 million in cash, $1 million more in revenue, and the net increase is 400,000 over last year of 1.61%. So the value of a mill increased almost $85,000. 2.62%. If you look at we've got a countywide levy, but then we've also got an airport levy, which is less than the whole county, and the weed, which just excludes Grand Forks City. And we get will receive about 700,000 more in property taxes just because of the valuation increase. So we would have had to increase our mills by 2 if our valuation hadn't increased. So right now we're looking at approximately 0.25 mil decrease for the city of Grand Forks, and outside the city it's a little bit greater than that. I guess I don't have that information in front of me, but I did. Oh, here it is. So in the city of Grand Forks, it's 1.15 mil decrease. If you live in the city of Grand Forks, you are not charged for the weed or the airport. And that's why it's less mils. And then outside the city, it's, about 2.25. So it's less if you're outside the city than it is in the city. Then I showed you the contracted services and what we have in the 2022 budget. Youth Works went down from 26,000 when Lutheran Social Services had it in 2021, and then in 2022 it's 14,000. It went from they no longer do the healthy family program that Lutheran Social Services did. And then they also do the attendant care program, and that went down $10,012 in the 2022 budget. Now we pay for the space. They're in our building, and so that's a difference that we have with Youth Works. CDIC has an increase of $14,097. And Safe Kids is something that we added in 2021, but after the budget. So that's not included there, so you see an increase of $25,000 for that.
Was that annually then?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think I included in there your information about the emergency fund is included at 0.46 mils, which will generate about 152,000. We levied 0.23 mils last year. I increased the levy because of all the flood events that happened in 2019 and 2020 to cover some of our out-of-pocket expenses. I anticipate we're going to be at $1.1 million at the end of this year. We are not allowed to levy if our cash balance is above what 5 mils would generate, and that's 1.6. So we are under that. Then I gave you a list of the revenue and percentages. 2021 and 2022, our property taxes is our main revenue source, and 71% in 2022, with the county revenue at 12%, state revenue at 16%, and federal is 106, doesn't register at 0%. And then I listed some of our top other county revenue. Prisoner board payments are our top revenue that we receive, and you can see from 2021 to 2022 we're going down $125,000 in that, and it's been high as 1.5 million budgeted, so it's slowly decreasing. Cost allocation plan increased from 613 to 804. We use the Abacus cost allocation plan to determine that amount. They do that for the human service zone, and we just use it for our purpose as well to allocate those costs. The road maintenance agreements, 512. The maintenance for Northeast is going from 567 to 512, and that's because of that 3,800 square feet that they're not going to rent from us anymore. The recorders fees increased from 250 to 260. The sheriff's fees, slightly up to 137.7. The commissary inventory and then interest income. We get 1/4 of 1%. It was kind of interesting. US Bank was in to see me last week and she said that she heard that we will never ever see anything above 2% interest again.
On what kind of thing?
For money market savings,
That's what I thought.
yeah. That will never see anything greater than 2.
We have the 80s back again.
Yeah, that would even be nice for them.
Yeah, you get high interest, so you get high inflation.
That's right. We did.
And then miscellaneous line items for revenue, I've got 1.2 million and there's 64 different line items, so I didn't list them all out. The estimated tax bills are due out August 10th. We need to have all our budgets finalized by August 10th, so I can prepare those estimated property tax bills and budget hearing notices for anybody that levies over more than $100,000. Has to be included. And our hearing cannot be earlier than September 7th. September 7th is the first meeting in September. I think I will ask for approval by the commission today to set that budget hearing. And then if the taxing district fails to provide the information by August 10th, they may not impose a property tax levy in a greater amount in dollars than was imposed in the prior year. And if they don't, that's what the estimated tax notice would be. It's what they had last year. And then if they don't give me a budget ever, they get nothing. Then they will be part of the final statements. Now that of course has not happened yet, but yes, there's always the first time. And I have to give by August 31st, I send these notices out to anybody that would be taxed at least $100. So there's a few people that won't get a notice, but most people do. And then I prorate the cost to send those out to all the taxing entities. So are there any questions? Or is there anything I should have said that I didn't say? That there were things that we took out of the 2022 budget requests and we paid for them or will be paying for them in 2021. We had the buildings and grounds, had a tractor and a couple of carpet cleaners. Human resources had a salary survey included. The coroner had a vehicle. Well, we bought one and then they put one in their 2022 budget, which took that out too, so. What else was there? Chairs. Oh yeah, the chairs. There was social services, our human service zone chairs that we're paying for this year instead of including it in the budget. And we're responsible for all indirect costs. And they say the chairs are one of them.
Madam Auditor, did that salary increase, does that include a step and 4%?
The salary increase is 4% January 1st. That's a COLA, and then a 2% market on April 1st, and a step on seniority date.
Okay.
Yep. Other questions? So what happens, I will ask at the commission meeting for approval of the preliminary budget. We cannot increase after that, but we can decrease. Just so you're aware, and then I'll ask also to set that budget hearing for September 7th.
So overall, we're dropping the mills.
We are by the use of cash.
Yes. But irregardless, it's,
Yeah,
yeah.
1.15 in the city of Grand Forks, 0.23 and outside her. 0.25.
But it's,
What is
What was 2.5? 0.25
0.25
Overall.
decrease from
for us.
when the people who
City
asked me in
Rapport.
Northwood, what are the taxes doing out here?
Yeah.
0.25 mil decrease.
Because the city doesn't have,
we board at
We were,
And airport.
an airport. Well, they must have airport. don't they?
yeah, I think.
no, they do their own airport.
Well, they do.
Northwood does, but some other.
Northwood does too, but Rockford City does.
So, and I guess my question that I think I asked before in your office, but it's somewhat problematic that we're using cash because at some point we run out and then we're gonna have to deal with that.
But weren't we getting to a higher point in cash?
Yeah.
That we needed to
We need to,
get
yeah.
some of
Yeah.
But
that
at some
down.
point, we won't be able to do that, and then we're gonna have to either reduce our budgets or increase our bills, which we're gonna be up against the cap on that pretty soon too.
Right, it was kind of interesting at our auditors convention last week, they were talking about the home rule charter. And that they were kind of encouraging to put it to a vote. And, they talked about having in your home rule charter that you should specify how many mills you won't go above. And we didn't do that last time. We just said we wouldn't go above the maximum allowed. Well, the problem with that is there are certain levies that are unlimited, and if you add them together, it's an unlimited levy. So that may have been part of it, reason that people didn't want to approve it. And I don't know what amount it should be. Now, Cass County does 75 mills for everything. Well, we're about 75 mills already for everything. We're at 87. More.
They've got a huge tax base,
Well,
They do,
And
their,
they also-
the value of a mill is over $1 million.
and their home rule, and they have sales tax.
Yeah.
The value of their mill is $1 million,
Over $1
What?
million.
and ours is 300 something. Wow,
So it makes it easy for
real
them.
gas.
So they don't levy anywhere near their maximum 75 for all purposes.
But I know that, in looking at, trying to get, this passed on a ballot, there needs to be a lot of education.
absolutely.
There was so much negative education or negative, things going out, whether it was the Herald, whether it was, there was just a lot of negative information that was being shared. Somewhat, it can be comparable to the school district. The school district didn't probably do the best, job when they were trying to get, their mills passed for buildings.
Well, I met today with Icon and Mr. Burkholder on our correctional center and the guys from Texas. And of course, they would like a number from us as to how much we want to support, and their number originally was 20 to 25 million, and I said, well, personally, I think 20 is where we're gonna be capped at some point, because taxpayers said, they're not gonna build schools for our children.
Yeah.
They're not gonna build cells for our inmates.
Yeah.
I know that. So, I said,
That's a tough argument, isn't it?
and we
Yeah.
can do some of that with the 6 mills that we have that we took off, that were. that's
There's
how-
10 there.
Right, but I'd like to
Yeah.
keep it at that 6. But if we can keep down the correctional center, then maybe we can work some magic as far as, I don't see us building a building right now in the sheriff's deal, because that's not gonna fly either. But we're gonna have to come up with an idea there, so.
Well, what do you think about home rule in Dry Fork County? Wouldn't, if we have to put up a sheriff's building, not the jail, because they don't want to pay for that, the sheriff's and the state's attorney. That's a bit easier sell than some things are. And I would think that people can see the fairness of spreading that over the entire county instead of the people who own a house or a farm.
Yes, I
You know,
think.
What are your thoughts?
I
on
think the first thing we need to flesh out is whether or not the sheriff's office and juvenile detention could go into the space for Northeast Human Services.
That'd be just the truth.
The public is not going to support a new building if we have 40,000 square feet of space that we're leasing and we could put our own people in there. I think people in this room would probably vote no on that just because that's not sound spending of the taxpayers' money. So I think we have to find out if that's possible. And, you know, I hate to see Northeast leave, but they're reducing their footprint now, and I think 2 years from now, they're gonna reduce it again. That's pretty clear to me. And if we give them enough notice, they'll be able to find some space. If it works out, maybe it won't work out. Maybe they'll say, juvenile detention can't go here, or maybe it has to go someplace else. And Bridgie doesn't really want it out at the correctional center, but if we can't remodel in this building, then that would be a problem.
What space does the sheriff's department need, and how about the state's attorney?
Well, I think the state attorney might have to stay where she's at. But I would think, and I'm not sure, I'd say 30,000 square feet would be more than the sheriff's gonna get in the building across the street in the building.
You want what, 34?
Yeah.
34,000 square feet?
Everybody wants everything. Brett wants a lot too. He's not getting
Well, there- what could be available in Northeast states?
40,000. But then.
A nice solution in some way.
One of it would be is, you know, could you put juvenile detention in 10,000? I don't know. Probably. It's more than they have now.
Worst part is it's up in the air.
Yeah, we'd have to do some.
I can remember when I was across the street, we took, you know, that's how the health department ended up over here, and we got their space over there to have a regional law enforcement center, and response time would be quicker than being, what floor are they on here? Are they second or third? Well, the health department. Third. So, instead of us responding from the third floor of the county office building to
Right.
emergency.
Well, and you know, this is all conjecture, I guess, right now, so
Yeah,
whether it would work, but in my mind, if the sheriff came in this building, they would have to go in, at least part of their office would be in that first floor there where child support is. We'd have to move them someplace else, but we'd want them on at least some of their people on that first floor there.
Yeah.
So,
see that, and that's a good remedy.
or we give Ms. Nelson brand new space upstairs somewhere, so. But anyway, you know, those are all problems we can deal with, but I think we have to give that some serious.
Oh, yeah, I agree. Yeah.
The political pundits won't be happy with this.
No.
We talked about the American Rescue Plan dollars and at our conference last week, and you can relate it to COVID, mitigating COVID. Cass County, I know, is probably gonna build a new building with their funds for emergency management because they were in a very confined space and everybody in there got COVID. So now they're gonna build a bigger building.
Well, and I mentioned that to the architect today, that we could use that money, and Mr. Ford's talked with me about it, but we're looking into it, if we could use that money to remodel and enlarge the infirmary at the present correctional center. Now, it wouldn't probably be what they want in a brand new spot, but if we enlarge it and build it out, and it would cost a little more money, of course, to remodel, but they're gonna remodel that area anyway, or some of it. But if we can use that funds, and we don't have to use our mill levy funds for doing that, that would help us. We could save 3 million there while in that project. And then we
And I
could,
think
we could, yeah, and we could, I think we could too, certainly, and I think Bill is gonna go out and check on air handling issues, that we could use somebody out there.
So Aaron Burst, he knew about the fact we're getting a new chiller.
Yeah.
It's like, I think that would count. You could use those funds for that.
Chairman Falk, if I can quick, before my day went to chaos, and maybe some of you know what's going on, we have a little bit of a COVID scare here, but which is why I'm here. I was supposed to meet with Bill Gaszewski and Commissioner Ross to talk about ARPA and facilities. And two things. we're getting, we may be at the point now with the juvenile detention center where it's time for a new roof or demo the building. So I think we're coming to that fork in the road very quickly. The other thing is that the air handler system in the courthouse is outdated and needs to be replaced. And these are all things Bill is going to talk with Commissioner Rost about today. So kind of giving him a touch point of what we're going to meet on. But the air handling and the HVAC system in the courthouse is going to need to be replaced, it looks like. We definitely do need to replace our air handling system in the Cobb. And also found out that the fire monitoring system in the courthouse is serviced through the juvenile detention center, which means the courthouse does not have its own fire monitoring system. And so Mr. Gaszewski was going to basically propose using ARPA to update the air handlers in both facilities, update the fire alarm system, or actually a new fire alarm system in the courthouse in case the day comes you're going to demo the juvenile detention center. And yeah, I mean, as far as the chiller, as long as we can tie all this back to COVID, you can use those ARPA funds. But just since you brought up air handlers, Bill did look into that and they need to be replaced.
Well, just tell Bill we're gonna use duct tape on the roof of that building until further notice. So,
I will tell him.
Flex Seal's better.
right, Flex Seal, excellent idea, Mr.
Gorilla tape.
I don't think we're gonna put a new roof on that building. At least we're gonna have to try to get through to where we can take care of our problem without fixing that building.
Debbie, didn't you say Cass County was looking at using ARPA money to add on to their jail? Or did I misunderstand that?
They might expand their jail with their money just for COVID to allow for additional space. He was referring to booking and the fact they would have to, the deputies would have to stay in their car and wait until they could go in. So they might be expanding their space as well.
Well, I suppose the other question would be whether some of that funds could be used to come up with a better solution for juvenile detention, because that building is, I mean, if the jail is old, juvenile detention is antiquated because, and those are children over there, so we might have an argument with those there in that area too.
I think if we can make an argument and Haley approves it, we can.
Well, and I told Icon and the Texas guy and Mr. Burkholder, we're not gonna make any commitments until we have a firm or at least more firm answers from the federal government, because we're not gonna start writing checks back to them. So, and that's fine. They're gonna take their time there. We'll just play it by ear until we can figure this out. Comments, Chairman Peach? No?
I mean, I know we have a lot of big projects ahead of us. Or, I mean, we need to prioritize what's the most important as we move forward. And oftentimes we need to be very careful that, yes, they are going to qualify for that federal funding, but also that they would be shovel ready, so that if something did come down the pike, we would have a project ready that would fit into those parameters.
Yeah, you don't get an extra year to wait for that thing.
No.
Okay. Well, does anybody have anything else? Then I think we'll just adjourn until the commission meeting, 4 o'clock.